Welcome to the Stay Read Podcast film series. I am Professor Dean, and I'm excited to bring you this interview today with our special guest. This film series is focused on the word reinvention, and so we brought somebody, a guest in that we felt would be the ideal candidate to kind of really walk us through the goals of chasing after your dreams and reinventing yourself. So I'd like to introduce my good friend, Donnelle McGee, the published author and poet.
Welcome to the show, D. Big fan of the show, man. Big fan of the show.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited. So we have to hear 3 books that you basically, you wrote over the last several years.
Yeah.
And we'll touch base on that more in the actual interview that we'll go into the podcast. But today I just want to focus on getting to know you a little bit in your journey, reinventing yourself. So thank you for being on the show. I'm grateful for this opportunity, man. So,
I'm glad you have me. Thank you for letting me be here.
All right, so without further ado, let's get started. First thing I wanted to ask you was if you could introduce yourself, your name, title, officially what you do right now.
Yeah, so I'm Donnelle McGee. Work at Mission College, but more than I'm a writer.
Okay.
A novelist and a poet.
How long you been doing that? Like, right.
I mean, I've been writing since like high school.
Okay.
Started with journalism, high school newspaper, and then college newspaper, and then poetry though, like in college. We'll get back into poetry.
So officially, when did it kick in that you became a professional writer, where people paid you and you were published and you had the opportunity? Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing that?
Well, I was published in college.
Okay.
We had a paper called Emoja.
Okay.
And it was for black students on campus, and also for all the community, but mainly for black students with a focus on our community at CSU Stanislaus. And then I worked for the Throwback Journal as a stringer, as a reporter.
Got you.
And I got paid to write sports stories.
Okay.
And then I kind of let it go. I went into more, I majored in journalism and sociology at CSU Stanislaus.
Okay.
And then went to grad school at San Jose State and kind of shifted over to be a counselor.
Okay.
And then I kind of came back to my writing, took an African American literature course at Mission College.
Okay.
Back in 2003 maybe.
Gotcha.
And I was like, you know what, I want to write. And I want to really write. And I want to go to teach writing. And then took that class and got inspired and began to write poetry and to read more poetry. And then I wrote at Goddard College in Vermont in 2006.
2006.
And began to kind of really, put that foundation down and kind of shift my life a little bit as a writer.
Got you.
So as far as being a professional writer, I don't know, we all write. You can be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a title. I think you have to write what's inside of you.
Yeah.
And then if you're blessed enough to get something published, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I write because I have to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, for me, it's kind of a process to let out what's inside of me.
Gotcha.
Let it leave the body and let people tap into it, hopefully, and it can help someone and it can inspire someone.
Awesome.
That's why I write.
That's dope. So yeah, you already answered that question for me. Like, why do you write? Like, what is your core emphasis of, why you continue to? Because it's hard to get up every day to sit down and write, right? So what?
Yeah.
For the readers and the listeners out there, how do you stay motivated to get up and write? And why do you write?
Well, I don't write every day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess in my mind I'm always composing, poems or narratives. But for my process as a writer, I tend to read a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I read a lot of other writers and poets, novelists, and begin to shape. And I love music. Listening to music that inspires my writing.
Okay.
So I might not write for like a month,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still gathering that information. Then I'll sit down and I might, create a poem or create a short story. But it's been brewing for a while.
Okay.
So I write in spurts.
Okay.
If that makes sense,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's kind of.
That's dope.
Go at it.
Do you have anything recent that you feel like you can kind of share with us, like what you wrote recently? What inspired you, a song or something that inspired you to write a piece out of it?
Yeah, I'm working on a book with my buddy Seneca Lofton, who's a poet in West Virginia.
Okay.
And we're doing a little, what we call like a call and response book.
Okay.
Where we're on a Google Doc. He'll write a poem. He'll send me his poem and I'll respond to it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then we're going back and forth. So I have some samples of that today I can share with you if you like later. But
that's dope.
We've been doing that. And a lot of it's based on what's going on in society, with our current administration, with Colin Kaepernick, the NFL, things going on.
There's a lot to write about.
So a lot to write about.
Yes.
And then, so I'm working on that.
Okay, so you shared a little bit how you became an author
Mm-hmm.
and how you came to writing. You've been writing all these years. But just tell us a little bit about what you did before you became a professional writer. What did you do before that profession?
Well, I've been working at Michigan College for 20 years.
Okay, wow.
So
2 decades, huh?
Yeah. I know, it's a long time.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
But it's a good place to work. It's a good place to work. But I was a counselor, academic counselor,
Uh-huh.
working with student athletes,
Awesome.
working with the general population also
Definitely.
for the last 19 years.
Okay.
And then just this past year, I moved over to the Department of English, and now I teach full-time in the English department. But back to your question before that, I was a counselor,
Okay.
working with students, working with the community. I worked for Upward Bound in San Jose State, working with first-generation low-income students. Before I went to Michigan College, worked at West Valley College for the EOPS program. So I've always been like a helper to help individuals. Because I'm a first-generation college student.
Mhm.
Someone gave me a chance to go to college, and my plan was to go ahead and give that back.
That's dope.
So
was it an easy or hard transition from being an educator in your role as a counselor to switching over to jumping into this role as a writer? Obviously, you still teach now, right? So that's dope. So you get paid to teach.
Yeah.
But how's that transition for you?
Yeah, well, I don't see it as a transition because I was always a writer, even when I was like a counselor.
Mhm.
I taught counseling classes. I would always infuse in my classes poetry
Mhm.
and fiction. So I've always used, even like a one-on-one appointments, but always kind of bring in an angle where, inspiration through words, through poetry, or it's a poem by Langston Hughes, or some work by Sylvia Plath to inspire individuals. But back to your question though, so I guess if I had to make that transition, it's been just being able to utilize writing in whatever I do, and then taking it to a level where I can do it more often in terms of the process of whatever a quote professional writer means. But I've always been a writer.
That helps me.
Guys,
But was there ever a pivotal moment that just clicked in your head, like an epiphany, like, counseling's cool.
Oh,
I gotta
I got you.
really pursue this. Was there a moment, or is there like a symbolic thing that you can think back to that clicked in your head, and you're like, you know what, I have to pursue this, right? Was there ever that moment, or how's that work for anybody out there that wants to transition their career or reinvent themselves into a writer, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
Was there that moment that you kind of felt like, this is the time, I gotta do it now?
Most definitely, D. Back in 2008, I left Goddard College, got my MFA in creative writing, and I'd be in the counseling in my office, and between appointments, I'm crafting poems. I'm thinking about writing, and I was like, dang, you know what? I love counseling, but I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm a good counselor. I felt I'm a good counselor.
Oh, yeah,
but I was like, thank you, man. But I was like, I really need to shift my focus, and I want to be in the classroom more, and I want to have more time to write.
Gotcha.
Because I'm at my desk writing.
And you literally write between.
I'm a counselor, which is cool, but I'm like,
yeah.
when can I go write? When can I go,
So this was
I knew I was
2006, 2007?
2008, when I left the program, I graduated from Goddard College, I was like, you know what, it's a matter of time, and I began to teach part-time in the Department of English at Michigan College, and
That's dope.
that kind of fed the muse a little bit.
All right, that's good. That gives us some more detail. So if you're out there and you're watching this, and you're doing whatever craft you're shooting a video because you want to be a videographer in between.
There you go.
Lunch breaks or whatever. You know what I mean? So those are things that really kick in, right? So the next question for you is: do you ever doubt yourself in the process? I know you've already published 3 books, and you're about to publish your 4th, which we will talk about more in the actual podcast interview.
Yeah.
But at some point, was there ever doubt that kicked in this process? Because we all know this specific field is competitive, it's overwhelming at times, the process of writing. So do you ever feel like the doubt kicks in the competition, or do you write for yourself, or tell us a bit about that process.
I have doubt every day, bro, as a writer.
Okay.
Because writing is subjective in some ways. I tell my students work on your craft, write the best poem you can write, but when you put it out to the world to get published, most times you're gonna get rejected.
Okay.
But
have you been rejected? You're a published author.
A couple times, numerous times.
Okay, so tell us about that. How's that work?
So
how do you deal with that rejection over and over again, right?
Because it's your craft. If I feel I did my best, when I began to send poems out to literary journals back in 2004, began to do that, and it took me about 1.5 years to get my first poem accepted for publication.
Okay.
And some of the poems were, wasn't the best, but even poems that I thought were really good and that I had feedback on that were good, it depends who's reading your work.
Yeah.
You can get rejected, and that's part of the process.
It's subjective, right?
Yeah, it's subjective. But if the piece is solid, and you put your work into it, you revision, it's gonna find a home. I tell my students that. So, but I always have doubt, these 3 books, the next book is, can I do another book? You know, am I done? Is my narrative already told?
Yeah.
But that's why I keep reading and keep listening to music, because there's always stories to tell. But
Gotcha.
I have doubt all the time, man. Yeah.
That's powerful.
I'm a doubt. I got a lot of doubt.
So being part of a writer, you have to be able to just deal with the doubt, right? Is that what the message you would grab from that?
If you're going to submit work out into the world, you're going to get rejected at times. So you have to be able to like take that. If you get feedback, take the feedback, analyze it, look at it, move forward. But that's part of being a writer.
Gotcha.
You know, if you're looking to get published, that's part of the process. But you know, work on your craft is the key.
Awesome. Yeah. So my next question for you is kind of deep, but was that when you were transitioning from your position as a faculty counselor, getting paid, you had your career already, you were 2 decades in, and you decided now, like, I'm going to leave that, right? Yeah. And transition over to this new profession of betting on myself and writing and putting my work out there as an artist. That reinvention of yourself, right? Ultimately, how did that affect your family? How did that affect your marriage, your kids, your relationships? So ultimately, we always talk about relationships, right? So how did that ultimately affect the relationships around you, from your work to your work relationships to your students and to your wife, to your kids? How did that affect the people around you?
Man, that's a deep question, bro. So I knew back in 2003 that I wanted to really kind of like become like whatever it means to be I know I was a writer, and I knew I had to kind of like really reinvent myself and go to graduate school and really focus on my craft. Mm-hmm. And in that process, I did lose my wife. I got divorced. You know, and she's a beautiful person. You know, we're good friends still. Mm-hmm. But what's ironic is that from that divorce came these 3 books. Mm-hmm. So I think I had to, in some ways, leave the marriage to write these books. And I write a lot of dark things. Like these books, like there's a central theme in these books. So like Shine, it's fiction. It's a novella. It's about a bisexual streetwalker. Mm-hmm. You know, my mother was a prostitute. Mm-hmm. My dad was a John. Mm-hmm. And
so for those that don't know what a John is.
Oh, so someone who pays a woman to have sex. Mm-hmm. You know, so I came from that, and I'm thankful. That's my life. That's who I am. And I should say my mom was more than a prostitute. She was this beautiful, charismatic woman. Yeah. I don't think she was. Yeah. Ghostman is the novel that I wrote. It's about a sexual addict. So I've had my demons. Naked tells a story of my mother and myself and how we dealt with addiction. Gotcha. And how our past kind of like came together. So my writing is like, it's kind of like, it's edgy. Mm-hmm. And I think I had to leave that marriage to write these things, because in that marriage I had a lot of demons and I was like depressed. Mm-hmm. And these books kind of like helped in some way to kind of get some of those stories out. But in that marriage, there wasn't a space to really do that.
Gotcha.
So if that makes sense, I had to kind of break away. And no regrets. Yeah. You know, and 2 beautiful kids out of the marriage, and they're doing really well. So yeah, man, so that's kind of the narrative of these pieces that, you know, and then my own demons and going through 12-step programs with sexual addiction. You know, a lot of us will talk about like pornography, like, you know, as men, as women too. We don't deal with pornography in terms of how it can impact a marriage or impact our own self-worth. Mm-hmm. These kind of deal with that in some ways, or what it means to hide yourself in a marriage or hide yourself from your partner and from yourself too, through numbing out. You know, whether you're eating, whether you're drinking alcohol, whether you're doing drugs, whether you're doing sex, you know, pornography. That's just how you cope. Mm-hmm. But when you go behind that, and that's how I do these books, go behind that, what's there, what's left.
To reveal that.
How do you become naked? Yeah. So Naked talks about like a lot of that. It's like a poetic memoir. Mm-hmm. These are more fiction pieces, but you know, any good fiction is based in some reality. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
It's powerful, man.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna expand more on that. Yeah. Like how was the impact on your work, for example? Like, were you still dedicated to your craft as a counselor? Were you still dedicated to how did it impact those different realms of your life, like the regions, like different issues that you had to deal with? I've always been good dealing with, you know me pretty well, I've always been good at putting a mask up. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was able, at least I think I was able to, at least to kind of mask like my own addiction at work. Mm-hmm. So for me, you know, on the outside, Donnelle's this happy dude, doing really well, damn good counselor, good instructor, students love him. But on the inside, there was a point in my life from like
man, 2003 to about 2006, man, I was just inside, just really, really messed up.
Yeah.
And I began to write about these things, you know, this addiction, this
Yeah.
pornography, and like how it affected my life, and massage parlors and all that numbing out stuff.
Yeah.
So on the outside, my work was great, but on the inside, I was a mess.
Got you.
So yeah, so I was able to mask that, but I still had to work inside. I had to get that stuff out.
No, so that's
And I'm not saying I'm perfect today, because I still struggle today, but I cope better.
And this is part of that.
Exactly.
So reinventing yourself is deeper
It's a process,
in here.
man. It's never complete, you know. So, but yeah.
So that's powerful, because I mean, just talking about reinventing yourself is, people may think it's about the profession, right? But sometimes it's about literally rebuilding and re-examining and dealing with the prefix of which is going back and actually processing things and going through it to get better, right? So I think that's a powerful message in your story, just sharing that piece. So thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for asking the question, man. That's a deep question.
I appreciate it. Now I wanted to kind of transition and ask you some questions more about the books that you have published. I know you published 2 books in 2015 and one as far back as 2012. Which books did you write? Which was the first book that you published?
Shine was the first book that was published by Civil Biography Press back in 2012.
Okay.
I mean,
How long did it take to write that book?
Wrote that book in about a year and a half.
Okay.
And then
when did you make time for that? So like you're working, right? You're still a counselor, and then you're writing in your car as you drive home, or how was that working?
Well, I commute, you know, I live in Turlock, and then I was commuting to the Bay Area. So a lot of Shine was written, like the book is called Shine after the Pink Floyd song.
Okay.
Shine on, you crazy diamond.
Okay.
So I would get in my car, man, and I would like play Pink Floyd, and Shine's very instrumental, the song, and I would just like in my head like hear the voices like Shelley and Bray, the characters,
Yes.
and then it began to write itself. And then I might on the weekend like sit down and write what I heard in my head,
Gotcha.
like their narrative. Or have index cards in the car and jot down a fragment.
That's powerful.
You know, so that book was written mainly like just driving to work.
So a year and a half to write that book.
About a year and a half, revision.
12.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then.
But the first book I wrote, I wrote that was Ghostman. And it was called Trying to Get Over way back in like before I even went to grad school.
Okay.
The MFA program back in 2000 and like
See, that's good insight.
2005. I wrote it on the train, the Ace train, bro, going to work. Ace train, a lot of that was written by hand on the Ace train, going back and forth from Santa Clara to Lathrop to Manteca, and then on the Turlock.
Okay.
And then, so I wrote the book, and I put it away, and then my buddy Charles Rice Gonzalez said, let's check it out, let's look at it. And I had some feedback from Mac's wife, and I had feedback from my good friend Jonathan Brennan,
Okay.
his wife Natalia.
That's powerful. Okay.
And then I put it away and went back to it later, and then eventually, you know, revision, it was published. And then Naked, I wrote that at Goddard. That's my MFA thesis project, and it was a combination of a book called Homecoming, and then it was a book called Naked, 2 manuscripts, and then we combined them, and that was published by Dumbbell Company.
So in reality, even though these 2 books were published in 2015, they were written.
This was written
formally
in
first.
2004, 2005. This was written in 2006 through 2008, 2009.
So Ghostman and Naked.
Yeah, you know, it's probably
and then Shine was the one that was published first, though.
Yeah, and now in 2010.
And the flow came easier for this one, do you think, or what was it like?
Well, the book of the Naked, like those are poems over like a series of years. But yeah, actually, you're right. This really kind of like just had a distinct voice.
Gotcha.
You know, Bray was just like bam, 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 and it was just beaten. And then Shelley, the 2 main characters. So that was really just a flow. Just kind of wrote itself in some way. Kind of came through that way.
That's probably
which is a blessing.
So for those who are inspired to, let's say, write or create a film or create a clothing line or whatever it may be, sometimes your first idea, you may have to hold off on it while other things are coming, right? Is that the message I'm getting from you?
That's a good point, yeah. I would say the first idea, if it doesn't pan out, don't lose that idea. Put it away for a little bit, and go to it with fresh eyes.
You know, it's so crazy when I was interviewing Vien Van Nguyen, the Pulitzer Prize
beautiful writer,
author for the book The Refugee and The Sympathizer. He had told me his short stories that he wrote for The Refugee was a process of 20 years. And he originally started writing those first, but he got The Sympathizer published first. right? And so,
Yeah.
which was crazy. It took him like a year and a half, 2 years to write that. So it's crazy in the interview. If you guys want to check out the episode, it's on State of Read podcast.
Definitely.
But the crazy thing about that was that he said the same thing, which was like it took him years to kind of transition into his first project, into actually getting published. So the other piece I wanted to ask was, how hard was it to find a publisher? How hard was it, and how tough was it to kind of get yourself out there?
Yeah, it was hard. When I sent out Ghostman, I tried to get a literary agent, and I got a lot of rejections. But I got some good feedback too from some of the agents. That really helped me kind of in the revision process. But when I met Brian Borland, who's a publisher of Sibling Rivalry Press, through a friend of mine, Teresa Sinato Edwards, through introduction, and he agreed to read Shine, and he loved it. So and then he said, bring me Ghostman. So it kind of really worked out. But it was hard, the process to find someone who would publish your work. But I always go back to, if the work is good, it's going to find a home. And I just think, I'm blessed that Brian believed in the books and believed in the stories, and they're edgy, but he liked the grit and he believed in the story.
So for Shine, from the time you completed it to the time you actually got it to a publisher, how long was that?
It was done it was pretty much done in 2010, and Brian, it was published in 2012 as an ebook at first. And then we had feedback from readers like this should be in paperback. So, and then he published it as a paperback. So it took about 2 years after it was completed to get it out into the world.
Got you. That's powerful. And the reason why I had to ask that was because, people need to hear the real side of it, right? The real actual grit of the work that goes behind that. And sometimes it's not easy. And so, if you're an aspiring author or artist, sometimes it's going to take some time, right?
But if I could add to you, I think when I wrote Shine, my goal wasn't to have it published. I wasn't thinking I want to get it published. I was just writing the narrative. I was writing the story.
Got you.
And then there's as a writer, as a musician, as a filmmaker, there's always the art. You put the art out. The business side is the secondary stage.
Gotcha.
So as I write, I'm not thinking about who's going to publish this. I'm just writing the narrative for all these books, and then once it's done, then can I get this published? But so you got to separate those. There's the business side of writing or any art, and there's the artistic side. And
you have to stay true.
I don't write to the market. I write because these stories were in me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
now the second piece of that, the question I want to ask is, who do you share with first, though? Did you share it with your wife, your ex-wife? Did you share it with
these pieces?
When you finished the project, who did you share these pieces with first? To kind of give their feedback and was it with people you trust, or was it with total more like people that you kind of had a relationship with, but you wanted an impersonal feedback from? How did you do that?
Well, at the time I wrote Ghostman, I was still married. So my ex-wife Wendy, she read it, and then my good friend Jonathan Brennan, his wife Natalia Menendez, she read it and gave me some feedback, and then Charles Rice Gonzalez. So people that I really trust, and then Naked was just in the Goddard program, so we workshopped it. We dealt with my colleagues and students in the program, and then Shine, that was through with Jonathan Brennan and just people like that I really can trust. But that one just kind of just came out. And I was like, I think this one's ready. I felt good about that one from the get-go. This one's ready.
And that's good to know, because a lot of times as artists, right, we are protective of our work, and we don't know when to and who to share that with, right? So a lot of times, when you're writing something, let's say you're creating a art piece, maybe your videos, etc. Who do we share that with? And so I wanted you to kind of share that a little bit. So.
And I would tell aspiring writers, be careful who you share your work with, because it's your work. And people can kind of, you take what you get from the feedback, you take it, use what you can, and let some of the things go. At the end, it's your art, it's your work.
Gotcha.
And don't be afraid of criticism, but also, keep your focus, keep your vision of your work.
And be true to yourself.
Be true to yourself, exactly.
That's dope. So thank you for that. Now, with all that being said, we're going to transition to the reason why you're here, which is you have a book coming out, right? and we want to share a little bit about that. So what book is it? Tell us about it a little bit.
Yeah, so the publisher of Naked through Unbound Content, Anne-Marie Lockhart, she's agreed to publish my new book. It's a chapbook, a book of poetry called Hey You. Once again, the theme of Pink Floyd, it's after a Pink Floyd song, Hey You.
Wow, okay.
So I love Pink Floyd, so
that's dope.
But it's a book about trauma, about relationships, and about how we either choose to stay with someone or we choose to move on with our lives. And in this case, Hey You, the speaker in the poems chose to stay with the person that was in love with. And the poems deal with like that relationship.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So it's a series of poems and prose.
A series of poems that deal with chaos in relationships.
Okay.
And how you go from that or how you don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Now my next question is, with that, if I'm a reader, what can I ultimately grab from this book that would help me just deal with trauma, or like even the concept of what we're talking about, like reinventing yourself? Is there anything that you want to share a little bit about that?
I think in any relationship between a man and a woman, or a man and a man, a woman and a woman, whatever your preference is, I think you go through a period where you have to say, am I going to stay or am I going to leave?
Mm-hmm.
And in Hey You, there's extremes,
Mm-hmm.
Because it becomes a love triangle, and it becomes a situation where, am I doing the best for myself?
Okay.
Am I doing the best for my
That's
partner?
deep, man.
So, do you reinvent yourself, or do you reinvent the relationship together, or do you reinvent yourself out of the relationship? And it deals with those things right there.
I love how you said that,
So,
reinvention of yourself and your relationship, etc. So that's powerful.
How far will you go for love? And
I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm excited to read it.
Yeah, well, thank you, man.
And we're going to talk about more of that, obviously, in the actual podcast.
Okay.
And we're going to have you read from the
Beautiful.
book. So, man, I'm
Beautiful.
excited about that. So for the final question today would be just simply, what does the word reinvention mean to you as you transition now in the stage of your life, and you've been through different career fields and career paths and relationships and your roles as a father? What does the word reinvention mean to you?
It means to be vulnerable, man. It means in your conversation with people, how you deal with people, to be vulnerable. That's how you build intimacy. And in that process, you reinvent who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It means being an open book. I think, the people you trust, maybe you feel that you can connect with, and not hiding behind, whatever it is you're trying to hide behind.
A facade, yes.
Facade, and having, good dialogue, and really letting, it means being seen,
Yeah.
And if you have a passion, not being afraid to say, you know what, I'm going to step out the comfortable life that I live,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really go towards what I really want to do.
Yeah.
And
powerful.
that's where life is. That's where you begin to live.
Appreciate that, man. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Stay Read podcast film series. We've been talking about this, getting this together for a while, so I thank you for being our guest, man. Appreciate you kind of setting the bar.
I'm honored to be here, man.
So with that being said, I just want to thank you. Again, check out Donnelle McGee's books, Shine,
Thank you.
Ghost Man, Naked, and he has his 4th book coming out
The goal is by the end of August.
Okay.
So that's the goal.
We're going to definitely do a straight up podcast about just the book itself. So we're excited about that, man. Appreciate you joining us. Also, give a shout out to Chris and Tiffany for holding it down today. Getting us on a video. We appreciate you guys. Coach For Real has the Reprise Stay Read podcast coming out, where he's going to be taking this to another branch with Reprise. So check that out. It's coming out as well. Again, this film series will be coming out throughout the rest of the summer into the fall. We got a whole lot of things going on in the Stay Read podcast. We're really, really excited to bring these to you all. So with that being said, I just want to thank you for everything, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you, D.
Yeah.
Always, man. Much love. Much
Yeah.
love.